offline before the podcast, you had mentioned that what institution should be stepping up to help people who are in need, because we're not denying people are in need. At all points in life, different people are in need for different reasons. Even well-off people, go through a rough divorce or have a serious medical problem. Financial strain can hit anybody. Or somebody who's just, right out of college or right out of high school and having a hard time getting a job. Like, people are in need. There's no doubt about it. We talked about last week how our economy is it's gotten, because of inflation, mostly speaking in 2022, 40-year high inflation, it's just devastated and still devastating the economy and making it very hard to live on a single income in this country. Anyway, point being, people are understandably in need often for a lot of reasons. And you and I don't necessarily think that it's the government's job to help those people unless absolutely necessary. So I'll just pass it off to you, because that was your point you brought up ahead of time as to who should be the one that's helping.
Yeah. So while you were talking, I went back and I found the person who said this. It was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said, "You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they can and should do for themselves. But there are those among us who would say that the best way to help people is to literally live their lives for them, to assume their responsibilities, to take away from them their accountability, their dignity, and pride." That last part wasn't Lincoln. The last part was by Richard Winder, a speech that he gave a number of years ago called "This I Have Done." So there are those among us who would say that it is best to help people. The best way to help people is to literally live their lives for them, to assume their responsibilities, to take away from them their accountability, their dignity, and their pride. And I would say that we see politicians now, that is their platform. That's what they run on. A New York City mayor was just elected on that platform. Arnold Toynbee, who is an English historian, did some study into this and had a good bit to say about it. And he wrote in his study of 21 civilizations that 19 of these civilizations that he studied vanished from the face of the earth, not from some great external force or from other nations conquering them, but because their people lost their faith in God, in their country, and in themselves. They lost the determination to succeed through their own efforts. They became totally dependent upon the state. And Richard Winder said, "How then can you prevent this from happening to this great land of ours?" Talking about the United States. First, he says you have to stand up and speak for America. Be proud of our country and its heritage and the part that you play in it. Second, remind every man, woman, and child with whom you come in contact of the basic fundamentals of good citizenship: loyalty, self-discipline, honor, and the desire for permanent success. And he ended his speech with some thoughts by Dean Alfange, which he summed up when he wrote My Creed. And it went like this: "I do not choose to be a common man. It's my right to be uncommon, if I can. I do not wish to be a kept citizen, humbled and dulled by having the state look after me. I want to take the calculated risk, to dream and to build, to fail and to succeed. I will not trade freedom for beneficence, nor my dignity for a handout. It is my heritage to think and act for myself, to enjoy the benefit of my creations, and to face the world and say, 'This I have done.'" Powerful speech by Richard Winder. So this dependence that people have developed on the state, and as was described by Abraham Lincoln, by Richard Winder, by Dean Alfange, by Arnold Toynbee, all points to the same failure of the same institution, I think, and that is the church. The church is where people are to be taught these things. The church is also the institution that is supposed to care for the widows, to care for the orphans, to care for the downtrodden. And the church, over decades, centuries, has relinquished that role to the state, is my view of it. And because we have been so woefully deficient in the church of teaching the right principles, defending the right institutions, and providing care and help to those who need it, The state has become the husband. The state has become the wife. The state has become the second parent in so many of these relationships and marriages. The state has become the organization that looks after the widow, that looks after the orphan. Where is the church in this? And we have become so apathetic in the American church. We've relinquished all of our biblical and God-given responsibilities. And nature abhors a vacuum, and so does politics, and so does religion for that matter. And in the vacuum that was left in the church's absence, the state stepped into that void and took on the role, and they've owned it ever since. And the results have not been good.